In a small village nestled along the banks of the Niger River, there lived a woman named Ndidi. She was known for her kindness, her radiant smile, and her unwavering faith. Ndidi had always dreamt of having a child of her own, but years had passed without her prayers being answered. Every morning before the sun kissed the horizon, Ndidi would walk to the edge of the river, a serene spot where she often found solace in prayer. She would kneel on the soft earth, her eyes closed, and her heart open to the heavens above, pleading for a child to bless her life. One humid morning, as Ndidi finished her prayers and opened her eyes, she heard a faint sound coming from the bushes near the riverbank. Curiosity piqued, she cautiously approached the source of the noise, and there, hidden amidst the tall grass, lay a newborn baby girl, crying softly. Ndidi's heart skipped a beat as she gently lifted the baby into her arms, cradling her close. The infant was wrapped in a simple cloth, her tiny fingers grasping Ndidi's thumb. Overwhelmed with love and compassion, Ndidi whispered soothing words, feeling a surge of joy unlike any she had ever known. Without hesitation, Ndidi carried the baby back to her modest home. News of the discovery spread swiftly through the village, and soon neighbors gathered around, marveling at the miracle that had befallen Ndidi. They saw it as a sign from the spirits, a divine answer to her prayers. Ndidi and her husband became very happy. She named the baby Ngozi. She vowed to always love, care, nurture and protect Ngozi for the rest of her life. She even vowed to lay her life down for Ngozi whenever the opportunity comes. She gave Ngozi the best of everything, and anything she could afford. The baby Ngozi begins to grow. Ndidi raised her with love. She watched her daughter as her daughter grew into a toddler. Ngozi became a very smart child. She could do what most of her age could not do. The child was such a blessing to Ndidi and her husband. Things began to flourish for Ndidi and her husband. Ndidi business in the marketplace blossomed to a very big business. Even her husband's business blossomed. Ndidi and her husband moved to a bigger house, and she was very happy that ever since this baby came into her life, everything began to change for the better. 3 years later, Ndidi became pregnant. At first she was surprised because she had never been pregnant before, but soon the pregnancy showed up like a bag of balloon. Ndidi and her husband were so happy. 9 months later, she gave birth to a baby girl. Ndidi joy knows no bound. She started going on with her normal life, taking care of her children. 2 months after childbirth, Ndidi became pregnant again. She gave birth to another daughter. 1 month after childbirth, she gave birth to a third daughter. Ndidi and her husband was so happy. Everyone was surprised. They began to wonder how Ndidi was able to give birth to 3 children within 3 years when she waited for 15 years before she could have her first child. Ndidi now have 4 daughters of her own. 15 years later, the girls grows into teenagers. Ngozi became a very beautiful girl, while the other three younger sisters were ugly. Ngozi did very well in academics. She always come out with first position, and her sisters always fail their classes and comes out with last position. Everyone in the village loves Ngozi because of her beauty and her personality, but her sisters were the exact opposite of what Ngozi was. They always fight everyone in the village, including their teachers, and for that the villagers hated them. Ndidi hated her first daughter Ngozi. She believed she now have 3 biological children of her own, and she hated the fact that she would be spending her money on another man's child. She started to nurture evil things about Ngozi. She believed Ngozi's biological mother might be a mad woman or even a prostitute, and for that she hated Ngozi. She never buy Ngozi new clothes, but always buy for her 3 daughters. Ngozi always wear rags, and whatever her younger sisters have stopped wearing, she sent Ngozi to a very local school, while her daughters went to the best school in the village. She hated Ngozi so much she always asked Ngozi to perform all the house chores. Ngozi would do all the cleaning in the house, washes everyone's clothes in the house, go to the stream to fetch water, go to the bush to fetch firewood. She made Ngozi to hawk all her wares that she sells. Ngozi became a maid in their home. Her husband loves Ngozi so much. He treated Ngozi with love and respect. He believed Ngozi is their first daughter. He was never pleased with the way his wife treated and maltreated Ngozi. One day as he was driving home, he had an accident and he died. His family received the news and they were all devastated. They all cried and mourned him, but Ngozi cried the most because her father was the only one who loves her. Even her sisters hated her. She felt alone and miserable after her father's death. After the death of Ngozi's father, Madam Ndidi hated Ngozi the more. She believed Ngozi stole her husband's love from her and her children. She increased Ngozi's punishment and suffering. She would beat Ngozi from any slight provocation. With any object she could find, she treated Ngozi like a dog. Every day she and her daughters would just sit down, eat and marry, while Ngozi would do all the chores from morning till night. She stopped Ngozi from going to school, complained she does not have money to pay her school fees, while her children continue schooling. But the owner of the school pitied Ngozi and gave her a scholarship because of her intelligence. But whenever Ngozi wants to go to school, Madam Ndidi will always give her many chores. She will still hurry up to finish the chores and run to school. She always arrives school very, very late, but yet she still remains the most intelligent girl in school. Whenever Madam Ndidi sent Ngozi to hawk her goods, she will always ask her to sell everything before coming back home. And when she comes back, she will collect all the money Ngozi made from hawking, beat her mercilessly, and send her to sleep on an empty stomach. Ngozi's body was filled with marks and scars from beating. Mama Ndidi always chased Ngozi out of the house on a regular basis. She would chase her out and Ngozi would sleep in an uncompleted building close to their house for days until the neighbors would go to Mama Ndidi to plead on Ngozi's behalf before she will allow Ngozi home again. Then when Ngozi returned home, her suffering will increase in a millionfold. Life became unbearable for Ngozi and she wished she was never born. She wished death would come and take her away to a safer place, but death never came. Madam Ndidi not only mistreated and suffered Ngozi, but she also abused Ngozi emotionally and traumatized her. She always abused Ngozi at any slightest provocation. She called her names, called her dirty. Whenever she abused Ngozi, her daughters would join her. They will all bully and call Ngozi names. It grew worse continuously until one day she packed all Ngozi clothes and set them on fire until they were burned to ashes. Ngozi became angry and challenged her mother. "Mother," Ngozi shouted at her mother, "why do you hate me so much? Why do you treat me like I'm a nobody? Why do you treat me like trash? Why, mother? Answer me. You always make life miserable for me. What is it? What have I done wrong?" Ngozi asked, crying profusely. Madam Ndidi pushed Ngozi and shouted, "You are not my child. You are not my blood. You are a nobody. You belong to the gutters. I picked you up from the river bank. Your useless mother threw you away. You pig." The words of Madam Ndidi sounded like wildfires to Ngozi. It seems like her whole world has come crashing, like the ground is about to open for Ngozi to enter. Ngozi screamed and ran out of the house to the big tree. Ngozi sits under the big tree in the village square and began to cry. She cried an ocean of tears. She felt like dying, but death refuses to visit her. She wondered who her real family are and why her mother threw her away. She cried till the sunset. She stood up and walked back home. On reaching home, Madam Ndidi screamed at her and said to her, "Here comes the dustbin girl." Her three sisters stood and said, "Here comes the dustbin girl." And they all started laughing at Ngozi, and Ngozi began to cry again until she fell asleep. Then Madam Ndidi came and emptied a bucket of water on her body. 7 years later, Ngozi is now 25 years old. She have grown into a young beautiful woman who is loved by everyone. As she was walking in the street, she heard the village town crier announce that all the village maidens should gather in the palace by noon tomorrow, that the heir to the throne will be coming back from overseas to the village to pick his bride tomorrow, that all village maidens must gather tomorrow. When Madam Ndidi heard about the announcement, she became very happy because she have always wanted one of her daughters to marry the prince. She rushed to the market to buy new clothes and new shoes for her daughters to wear to the palace tomorrow. Ndidi bought the best clothes and shoes for her daughters to wear to see the prince. She was very happy that finally this day have come. She have always dreamt of this. She walked hurriedly home and couldn't wait for tomorrow to reach. She sat close to her clock and started to pray for the time to tick. The time finally came and she hurried her daughters and they began to walk straight to the palace. Then Ngozi joined them wearing the best clothes she could find. "Where are you going?" Madam Ndidi questions Ngozi. "I am going to the king palace." Ngozi replied, "You cannot come to the palace. The palace is not a place for someone like you. Go inside the house, wash all the dirty clothes and plates and clean the entire house. I have done all of that already." Ngozi replied happily, "You have done everything. Now go inside and wash all the clean clothes again." She packed all her daughters and they left for the palace. Ngozi quickly rewashed all the clothes and plates again and even rearranged the house. She checked the time. It was just 1 hour remaining for the event to close. She decided to go and sleep before Madam Ndidi will return to start to give her extra chores. She walked straight to her room and lay down on the bed. Then suddenly she decided to just go to the palace to see how the event looked like. Because she was told that different musicians and dignitaries will be coming to the event, she decided to go. On reaching the palace, she sneaked into the crowd and stood in one corner. Then she saw her mother Mama Ndidi pushing one of her daughters